So.
I'm always surprised on that. Everyone to do this. So. No, I think we do have everyone here, which is good. No empty seats, which is always nice. But first of all, just thanks for coming out bright and early this morning. I think this is something that we've been wanting to do for quite a while in terms of getting a handful of our partners and big brand friends together as well. I think if you look around the room, I think everyone here shares that passion with us to help brands, smaller brands in particular, and their founders reach their full growth potential. So for us, this is the perfect opportunity to come together and just have a very relaxed, casual, very open conversation about what we've seen works with SMEs, how we can help them more effectively. Because I think the fact that we've got ourselves into this space really does come with that responsibility that we look at how we can do it effectively and really do what's best for these SMEs who eventually become our customers as well. So how do we do that in the right way? So what we'll do is, as I say, very relaxed morning. Let's whip around the room and get to know who's here. It'd be great if you can introduce yourself, just name, company, and feel free to give us a one-liner about what you're doing. And to make it interesting, why don't you all tell us as well what your favourite small business is at the moment, whether it's someone that you're using, someone that you admire from a business standpoint. So I'll tell you what, to give you some more thinking time, I'll go first. So James Sutcliffe, founder and CEO of the Founding Network. One of my favourite, I can't say favourite in this, if we've got 1,200 and Giuseppe's filming this. One of the ones I really admire at the moment is a company called Magway, which you may have come across. They're effectively putting electric tunnels up and down the country, underneath various cities to transport goods, and effectively are aiming to take 90% of lorries off the road in the next few years. So massive change. Shameless plug, they are in our documentary, so go have a watch of that if you haven't seen Founders Changing the World. But I think just their ambition is enormous and they're pulling it off. So for me, they're one of the ones I'm watching at the moment.
Thank you. Sarah Atkins, I am the CMO and Membership Director at GS1 UK. We're most renowned for being the data standards that have barcodes, QR codes, EDI, so anything around optimising the supply chain or being able to identify people, products and things. So saving the world one barcode at a time. We found through COVID that out of passion and panic, an enormous amount of new businesses starting up, and for things like Amazon and Google, and other search engines are available, that structured data is really critical for the small businesses. So we've been helping them on that journey, and our biggest challenge right now is to encourage them to continue to grow so they can go back to day jobs after they've started what have been initially passion-based businesses. Nothing quite as worthy as digging holes and saying the world. We have some amazing food and drink founders. 75% of them never worked in food and drink before. There's a young team running a business called Lelo who are bringing boxed wine back to being cool. They won a competition with us and are currently at Selfridges doing a Christmas pop-up, and everything they've thought about. They've come out of the Virgin Wines store and they've started up from scratch and are doing phenomenal things in beautiful boxes. So
it's Lelo.
Yeah.
L-A-L-O.
Yeah. So hashtag drink Lelo. And they are two fabulous ladies who are on a mission to get us back to being able to drink fabulous quality wine that doesn't go off. It lasts up to 6 weeks.
Amazing. I should say, guys, feel free to dig into food while we do the introductions as well. There is plenty of it, so Raj, over to you.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Raj. I work for Aviva. I'm the Group Brand and Reputation Director for Aviva. It caught me on the thing that I've tried to remember the name of the company that I was about to say. I'll have to send that around. But basically, I've just met these two guys who, a few weeks ago actually, who've come up with a system of the carbon footprint of everything that we eat. And to be able to tell you how much and how you can change it and everything that you consume as well.
I've got that card in my hand.
There we go. So those guys, and I will send their sort of company name to give them the kudos. But I do really like their business and see how we could best monetize it.
Lovely. I'm Tina. I'm from Microsoft Advertising, the alternative search engine. We're responsible for helping SMEs, but also all sorts of companies as well, to get the best value out of their marketing. The joy of search marketing, obviously, is it's a lot cheaper than other marketing. So we're working with a lot of SMEs on why search marketing matters and how to do it. We also offer a lot of great deals for new business. Just to throw that one in there. From my perspective, and I'm the same as you, Raj, I've totally forgotten their name. So I love companies that really believe in their values and their purpose and the way they show up. And there is a tights company that was founded in Scotland who have basically produced tights for everybody. And they are phenomenal in the sense that, you can buy different sizes, different textures, it's for men and females. And they have grown massively, strangely, over the COVID period, because they're so comfortable and people are just sitting, obviously, at home wearing these tights. So again, I will get their details because everyone should own a pair of these tights.
Yeah, Christmas tights.
I feel like we're going to need to share a list.
Yeah, I think so.
Just for their names.
So hi, good morning. I'm Anna. I represent a company called Satago, which is a 3-in-1 cash flow management solution for SMEs. I just joined the company 3 weeks ago, and I'm totally new in the fintech industry, so learning a lot. But the vision and the mission of Satago is really helping SMEs to succeed by giving them access to 3 main tools, which is the risk insight connected to credit safe that give them a clear understanding to who they're working with in terms of clients. Credit control, which is an automated email reminders to help them getting the invoice paid earlier, and the invoice finance, which is basically the unpaid upcoming invoices to get a loan against those invoices. And I know our CEO, Sinead, she's a really passionate woman who really wants to help SMEs, succeed, grow, and we heard a lot about the SMEs, unfortunately, not succeeding, and that's one of our missions, to really help them. That's all for me.
Hi, I'm Natasha from the Founding Network, which hopefully most of you know about or are familiar with. I hope so. I'm torn between two, but the startup scale-up at this point now that I am most bowled over by is Bloom and Wild, which I think is probably everyone's quite familiar with. So they were the guys that decided, actually through our partners at Test, doing some market research, that giving red roses on Valentine's Day actually wasn't really a good thing. It actually looked like a little bit of a last minute mishap. So they actually banned red roses on Valentine's Day, and they saw ridiculous growth and a lot of popularity and more following. And more recently, after 9 years, they're now in a position where they can advertise on the tube, and they're getting people, they're encouraging people to think about Christmas as the little things rather than the big do's, the big events. So they're allowing you to post tiny little Christmas trees at the minute, which I think I'll be doing this year, which I think is quite cool and quite fun. So yeah.
Cool. Morning everyone. I'm Burcu from Swedia. So we are a cloud communications platform for all sorts of companies again, but my role specifically, I'm the senior marketing manager looking after startups and small businesses, and enable them to use Twilio's APIs to basically establish their customer engagement strategies, and making sure they are growing with Twilio. I really didn't think about, I mean, I've got some customers in my mind, but I think I'll go for my previous company. I used to work at startups as well, so I used to work at Aviva, and they are an FX company, but their mission is to democratize transferring money for immigrants, giving them really accessible fees and enable them to send money to their loved ones in abroad in a very good rate, I would say. So yeah, nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you.
I'm Juliana, I'm from Google, and I'm looking for SMBs in EMEA and trying to help them explore our Google Workspace solutions. For those who don't know, Google Workspace is a great space for its productivity and collaboration tools. And one of the startups that came to my mind is Too Good To Go. It's very new, Marlon.
Yeah.
Okay, people know it. That's good. Why I love it because it's actually like the company that doesn't produce like any new products, but produce value by utilizing like existing products, and has actually very good like social code fight food waste. And it's platform based, which helps them like to grow, and they're very fast and very like transparent in their communication. And yeah, if you don't know it, check it out.
Hi guys, I'm Henry. I come from Clearco. We're the world's largest e-commerce investor. We are providing non-dilutive funding to startups in the D2C space to essentially help with marketing and inventory concerns and worries, preparing them for large parts of the retail and consumer calendar, and making sure that we're helping and aiding their growth. To date, we've invested about, I think it's just topped over $2.5 billion in about 6,000 businesses. In the UK, it's about 150 million in about 700. And yeah, looking to basically help. Our end goal is to fund 1 million businesses across the globe. And yeah, I've been brought in to help make that reality.
I win.
Very good question. I'm not gonna put a date to it if that's all I'm saying. But yeah, soon.
Great.
And as soon as possible, I think is the aim. My favourite business. I've only been in the business about 6 weeks, but I think one of our customers that I'm really sort of in awe of is a business called Nourish, based out of Birmingham. They create 3D printed vitamin gummies that are tailored to each individual. So they take you on like a tailored journey of essentially what you want to get. Do you want better sleep? Do you want your skincare routine not quite what you want it to be? And provide a 3D printed layered gummy that is aimed at providing you with those vitamins that are going to address those particular areas.
I use them.
Yeah,
Yes,
amazing.
I do.
Cool.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I love their marketing work. They're brilliant, and yeah, really cool story. She's a serial entrepreneur. Her name escapes me now, which is really bad. There we go. Melissa, thank you all. But yeah, so a huge shout out to Melissa because yeah, it's amazing what she's doing.
So they also feature in the documentary. If you haven't seen it, watch it. I tell you what's incredible about them as well. So they do the gummies that everyone's aware of, but they actually build their own 3D printers as well. So literally everything is in house. They've got a little workshop where they build the printers.
So that's their like proprietary.
I think she's patented the actual. She's the first person to make this 3D printing gummy technology, isn't she?
So while people have broken parts and they're waiting for them to be replaced, Melissa just built it.
And I think it came from the frustration of having to wait so long for or not having the ability to have that personalised sort of wellness gummy or vitamin.
She was saying that she just thought it was mad that she was taking the same vitamins as her 80-year-old dad.
And now she doesn't have to take 35 pills a day to get the nutrients that she needs to function as a human being. So just one gummy does it. But amazing, check it out. It's and they're also beautiful little things as well, layers and colourful.
Amazing.
Very nice.
Hi everybody, I'm Catherine and I'm from Sky. But I am sort of from a new area of the business called Direct to Scale, which is all about helping startups, D2C companies, new to TV companies scale on TV, because did you know TV actually does work on many different levels, and we're always trying to find new companies to spread the word about the power of TV. But it's not just limited to the UK. So we're now, as of 2018, I believe we were part of Comcast, the Comcast family, which is partnered with NBC Universal. So we are in 150 countries across the globe, doing lots of things. So our network is just, increasing. So we offer clients sort of a global solution across the world. Right, so I deal with lots of different companies all the time, but one that I just wanted to mention, and you may have seen in the news, but we just launched the Sustainability Fund. So the winner of that one was Flow, and they have such a great advert. I'll send it across, but they do fem care, sustainable biodegradable fem care, which unbelievably has not been accessible before now or possible. So we just gave them £2 million on TV to spread the word about Flow, and it's a really great advert, kind of Downton Abbey-ish, but it's great, so check it out.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I work at Vonage, which is, we do a couple of different things, so unified communications and then contact centre solutions with an integration to CRM, Salesforce, Zendesk, Microsoft Dynamics. And the third part is APIs as well. So I work with SMEs, particularly in like high-tech area. We work with them to sort of scale up as they grow. So starting with unified communication solutions, and then as they grow, as they build their sales or service team, have that integration to Salesforce or other CRMs are available, and have that the ability to be able to service their customers as best as they can. In terms of an SME one I recently met with is a company called Flex Legal, and they are a legal a company that pairs lawyers to companies that are struggling. And having worked at companies where you don't have enough of a legal team to deal with like the different demands that you might have throughout parts of the business, I thought it was a really interesting initiative. So companies can come to them and say, we need 5 lawyers for this project, and they will partner them with the correct lawyers. It's a bit of a matchmaking service between lawyers and businesses.
So I'm Georgia, I'm the Partnerships Manager at Family Network, hopefully you all know it. And so I'd say my favourite small business would be our community member, Thursday. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of them. I mean, they're absolutely everywhere. That's what I was about to go on to. So the reason why I absolutely love them is the marketing campaigns. I mean, if you've seen a guy standing there with a "I cheated on my girlfriend on Thursday" sign, then that was Thursday. And I just think they're just so out of the box. And the founder, I've never met him. He's done quite a few, I think, speaking kind of segments for us, but I haven't had the privilege of meeting him, but he just seems like the most creative, amazing human, to be honest with you. I follow him on LinkedIn, I'm always watching what he's up to, and he's just, really interesting. Definitely just a whole different new angle of marketing that I've just not quite seen before. So I would say, Thursday is my favourite.
George has zero fear, by the way. I don't know if you've all seen his campaign. So one of the last times we caught up with him, he had to be up really early the next morning. I assumed it was a big meeting or something. It wasn't. He had to sit on the tube for 12 hours from 6 a.m. with a sign that fitted the advertising saying, "We can't afford ad space, but check out Thursday." So, does a lot of strange things, but seems to work.
Gosh, it's hard going. Near the end. Everyone's mentioned the whole I'm so Sam, I'm the director of our what we call immersion team at Snapchat. So emerging at Snap is basically digital first, digital disruptors, mid-market and SMB. So look after that for EMEA and APAC. To get to a lot of travelling and get to meet loads of really cool brands around the world. Flow, I do think is awesome.
Thank you.
Being part of them, they're doing amazing things in the space. I was literally out with the super good people the other day, so it's getting Thursday, I literally saw them yesterday. I'd say one which is actually quite a big company now is Ben Francis and Gymshark. So I actually started working with them, 8 years ago when I was at Google, and he was literally in his bedroom, and his mum used to interrupt us on his calls very often, and just to see where the brand's gone to with his kind of pretty cutthroat, ruthless determination to disrupt the industry. And then I just think another CEO which I admire a lot at the moment is Anne Bowden from Starling Bank. Every time I meet her, she's just a powerhouse of a woman, and actually proves entrepreneurs don't need to be techs in their white trainers. Very much shows anyone can do it at any stage. And I think for her, just coming at the company with such a positive disruption mindset is pretty awesome to watch.
I'm Callum, I'm from ITV, and yeah, similar to I think everyone on the table, we're a slight sort of subdivision of commercial, so we're called Adventures, and my team looks after the media side of that. So we are launching brands on TV and growing them onto TV, and it really does work. So, but obviously I said the media side because we have an equity side as well, so we actually take equity stakes in businesses too. So I'm going to plug one of those with my favourite because I think it is, and that is What 3 Words. So I suppose it's more of a scale up now, but certainly when we started talking to them, they were growing, and I initially thought this is something that's great for emergency services, right? Because you can locate them any 10-foot sort of square in the world with 3 words, and you know exactly where they are. But then, of course, so much more than that. Minicabs, Ubers, anything you can think of, road signs that have it on, as it dominates the globe. So I'd say that's a business I think is fantastic.
Really cool. So a real range of businesses around the table. So I think we've all got fairly similar goals, challenges, which is why I think this format will work so well just in sharing those. And just from our point of view, obviously we spend just about all our time with some of the most innovative founders in the country. So hopefully we can share our bits of insight as well as we go. But I suppose just to kick us off, let's start almost at the beginning. So when we're creating our teams and first going out with these smaller businesses, and Henry, I think you'd probably be great to kick us off on that one. How have you found coming into the UK as a new business to the UK? Obviously a lot of traction in North America, but what are the things that you really had to focus on, and what sort of worked and anything that hasn't worked?
Education is a big thing for us, not only on us as a brand, but on our particular niche that we've carved ourselves in the funding space. I think revenue-based funding is a very new element to the investment world, but even more so in EMEA and UK. So that's been a sort of challenge for us. I think for us it's about being able to accurately convey that message at a sort of very granular level, being able to sort of understand the key pain points of the small business that they feel, whether that's through personal guarantees in the bank or whether that's through losing equity losing equity in their business and some ownership control, like what we're doing through the non-dilutive space is just basically it's that education process that's been I guess the challenge. But what comes with that is the opportunity, and I think being able to team up with, for us, it's been a great opportunity to, I guess, just carve out our own narrative on it, because at events we are the only ones speaking on it. We have that platform, and we have, luckily through our founder and guiding light, Michelle, who was dragon on, or is, I should say, a dragon on the Canadian version of Dragon's Den. Like what we have is we've got an amazing platform to be able to educate. So it's about using those networks, using that platform, and basically being able to, in all areas that is relevant where SMEs are featuring in the D2C space predominantly, be able to just, I guess, speak about it as much as possible. And I think it's about not having that fear to be everywhere, and sort of not having, I guess, breaking into that new market. It's about continuously banging the drum and making sure that what you have is you have that opportunity to really hammer home your message at varying different levels, while also developing that conversation, continuing to kick the can down the road essentially, and make sure that you're speaking to you're identifying the pain points and then tailoring that follow-on to each pain point that appears.
So I guess it's that trying to do it at a granular level, but then balancing with that and scaling.
Yeah, and that, I guess that's the, you know, as one of 2 marketers in Europe currently, that is one challenge. But yeah, it's basically, I think what we've realised as well joining the new region is that the persona of the entrepreneur that we're targeting is different from the North American persona. So it's understanding what those nuances are between entrepreneurship globally and being able to sort of tailor that message to cater for the new market. Because I think, maybe in the early stages, what we did through maybe lack of resource was more of a copy and paste element. And now what we have, now we've got the grandiose team of 2, what we're able to do is maybe be a bit more boots on the ground, understanding the local market and be able to sort of, I guess, attack it from a more localized point of view, which I think is key.
You took the words right out of my mouth. What we have learned is that whilst we can operate globally, you have got to be localized and very hypersensitive to what's going on in that individual market. And just to give you a good example, so we have an advertiser who knows that they need to reach cycle enthusiasts in the US, in Germany, and in the UK. And what we do for them in the UK, we thought, oh, we'll just replicate that in the US and in Germany. No way. There's definite nuances. And we say, what a cycle enthusiast is in Germany is very different to what it is in the UK. And
how do you battle that though? Because
it's a lot of tested learning, founded by data. So really planning really effectively, getting a lot of kind of insights, but we've learned along the way. So there's a lot of sort of testing and learning cautiously. So you can't necessarily go big out the gate. You need to do that,
I think it has a knock-on effect to customer journey as well. I mean, we're a very data-driven company, and what we have is we require our founders to connect their various sales apps, transaction apps through and run it basically through this AI algorithm that identifies transactional history, so that we can therefore protect where the company is going, so we can then generate an offer. What's been interesting to see as well is, and this is maybe generalised, but the North American market are a bit more open to sharing all that data, whereas in the UK and EMEA, what we're coming up against is that user journey has to be slightly altered in that sense, because a larger proportion of the SME market maybe doesn't want to part with that data. So it's about using data, but also knowing the limitations with that and being able to, I guess, be reactive to the nuances of and preferences of the.
And I think that's a challenge that comes with, I guess, a lot of the bigger brands in the room, where you've got that big job title of EMEA, but actually how do you make it more localized? And that's going to be a continued challenge. And I think the other thing that you've raised there that's interesting, and again we see it a lot, is actually knowing and defining which SMEs you think you can actually really help and help to reach their full growth potential. So, Tash, I know we see it a lot, don't we, where we talk to big brands and they're so concerned with they have to have X revenue or X profit, but actually if they really understood how SMEs are working, a lot of them aren't even making profit yet. They've got millions in funding, so the budget is there and they need to grow very, very quickly. So just to open up to the table, how's everyone finding actually defining which SMEs are actually looking to talk to and actually help? How does everyone do that?
That's the $1 million question.
Absolutely.
I think we're going through a big project at Snap at the moment of, as a company, our key focus is to break even, and finally we've done it. And now we're going through this big investment into international, and I think what we've noticed very quickly is the more local we've come overnight, the better business partners we've become. And I think my favourite is I support a lot of clients across Central and Eastern Europe, which is again the fact Americans like, what's the capital of CE? Like, it's not a country, it's a multitude of countries. And even just the difference of having a Russian speaker speak to them in Russian is a massive support for them, because I think the wild basis, again, traveling to all these different countries, is certain cultures respond to you speaking in English very differently.
Yeah.
Someone up front be like, well, the French, they're very generalising here, but they bluntly tell you, like, I don't understand you, like, go away. Like, some cultures, they just pretend like they literally nod along. And one of our clients, which we've mentioned actually in this room today, worked with for 3 years, finally hired a Russian speaker, and he turned to her and he was like, never understood this guy for 3 years, thank you for joining. And so one of the things that we've done is, I think, by hiring more local people, by increasing our footfall, we've actually been able to source businesses a lot better and actually vet them because they understand what's going on in their markets better. So I think for us, a lot of it is the vetting process is actually not acting as a big company and acting as a local small company, giving autonomy to some local leadership to go out there, find these businesses, engage with communities like the Family Network, and actually position ourselves less about, hey, who's going to spend with us today, but actually trying to promote which tits sport you when you're looking to get to this audience. And so I think for us, the biggest been hiring local people to get these markets, and then ultimately to not act as a big company, to really act as like multiple small companies, which is a pain to manage, but it's it's a
pain to manage, but also a lot more relatable for the SMEs, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Those people are then acting like effectively a startup in a big business, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where we've noticed actually people that we hire. I think if you look at traditional media sales and Mad Men and all of that, that's gone those days now. Like, you need to hire analytical, data-driven people who actually have a passion for growing business. And I think that mindset of bringing in consultative salespeople, it has to be done. And like, as a big tech company, you have to be responsible for ensuring that the results are driving business results. I think that's the biggest thing we say to a lot of our partners is, we actually upfront spend a lot thinking like, hey, your first 10 campaigns, we'll fund them. Right? We want to prove to it works. And I think having that mindset is very important as well, because there are a lot of duds that fail for us, but the one or two that stick, they can then be very profitable for you as well. And I think that's a much healthier way of attacking it than I think in the past. Media sales got a bad rep, it's just selling stuff that people didn't need.
Absolutely.
I think it's not nice now to act as almost business owners for them.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what this format is, just to make sure we're all acting in that ethical way where we can effectively help them. How about this end of the table in terms of trying to act more locally? How do you define the right brands for you guys to work with?
We're open to everybody, so bank account, business brand, and then you just want membership. So we're a not-for-profit, and I think our biggest insight is, in order to feel that you have permission to talk to them about any part of their business, then you have to stop the chat and actually do the listening. So an awful lot of what we're doing is around community and building a sense of community so that they can learn from others and really breaking down to an awful lot of conversations with them about what it is that you need to help you get to the next level, and then we find the right partners to help them navigate through and give them what they need to be essential. So it could literally be, how do I find somebody to help me build a brand? It could be packaging, it could be production. So we're using the membership fees to build those communities out. So it's realistically at a very lot of ours. So 80% of the people that joined us in the last 12 months are probably turning over less than 100,000 quid. But if they don't carry on turning over 100,000 quid, I don't have a job, because without their membership fees, it's really straightforward. So I think that whole angle around it being a community, because we're not for profit, is part of the angle that helps them think that they can trust us. So it's a lonely place for them too, so that community conversation and learning others are doing.
It's interesting because I'm at the very unsexy side of it, on the finance bits, and we have some different things that we talk about. So we don't give equity, we don't give great space on TV, etc. But what we do have is a very big local presence, which we've always had, and we use that to our advantage, and to people's advantage, because the two or three things that we found at least SMEs care about. Number one is cash flow. 100%. Number two, one of their biggest costs is actually insurance. And the third is actually acquisition. And what we have in the UK is about, give or take, 16 million customers. A really good system, really good segmentation, data, analytics on those. And what we do with our customers then, SMEs especially, would be, you're working with us, you have our products, we're not selling you anything else, I mean, you've already got the insurance bit of it, but we could help you grow. And if this is the kind of customer you're looking for, why don't you marry that into our database? We've got 16 million, you can probably acquire them way more easily then, because you can match, you can look for lookalikes, etc. You don't have to find them on platforms, you've got them there. And you have way more data than anybody else can ever give you. So it's much more on that end of it rather than anything.
Yeah, one of the things that we often find is, so when speaking to brands about working with an Aviva, an ITV, Sky, whoever it may be, a lot of them feel that no matter how big they get, that is almost out of reach for them. So a big part of it is then that education piece, which I know you've touched on as well, that they just don't believe they can afford to advertise on TV or work with the biggest law firm or whatever else. So how's everyone been combating that too?
Well, no, I was just going to say, and it's interesting, I'm honestly finding this this conversation fantastic. So the way we approach it, obviously, we are a large organisation and have lots of different parts of the Microsoft network that we tap into. So we have a Microsoft Startups group, but we also have our, in the UK, we have our flagship store in Regent Street. And during COVID, we actually shut that down as a storefront, and it's become a community hub. And so we run huge amounts of trainings virtually, but also now in person. That might change over the next couple of weeks, but anyway. And I suppose that's where I'm really interested in the sort of, I totally agree on the local approach, but we do scale a lot of what we do because it's around education and helping them understand the value of where Microsoft can support on various different areas. And then from an advertising point of view, we are there to educate and help them, almost handhold them through a lot of the challenges that they're facing around cookies and GDPR and, you know, what search advertising means, because a lot of these people, you know, a lot of these companies just don't understand, you know, where to start. Because they can't employ all of the professionals, and so it's really going down to the simplicity of, you know, what does this mean and how will this support you? So it's a very gentle, gradual approach, but we're not resourced to be able to do it on a local basis in every market. But in the markets where we can, we have a lot of these initiatives where we will hold workshops and events or actually partner with them on a one-to-one basis. But, you know, it's not necessarily selling what's on the truck. It's about helping them get the best value long term and thinking about a lot of these things that are actually going to come and potentially rip them apart. And so we're really trying to help them look ahead more than anything.
I think sometimes it's a challenge as well when you're working with SMEs. Obviously, when they first start, the founder is wearing every hat, and that changes over time. So when a Microsoft comes in, are they talking to the founder, or do they have someone that is actually managing that area of the business yet? So it can be sometimes hard to do it at scale as well, with knowing who to engage in that. So it's really getting to know them. How do you get these founders or SMEs along to these sessions and engage them generally?
Through the whole Microsoft database that we have, through the store, the online store, various other areas, but we also have a lot of partnerships across the startup community that we, from the Microsoft startup point of view, that we connect with, and then obviously working with people like yourselves to run sessions and education sessions and get points of view out, like, you know. So it is definitely an area of growth for us, but we are probably a lot further at the beginning than I think Snapchat potentially are. I'm sitting there going, oh, okay.
Sam, you mentioned that Snapchat just launched the new organic space, right? Where in effect it's trying to build that community and that sort of get to know them and try before you buy. So how's that going? Any sort of learnings from that?
Yeah, I think
know it's early days still, isn't it? So
well, I think the challenge we had is when we first launched our ad product, you had to do it through IOs, so literally us physically signing paper. The benefit of that was you very easily control who you're working with, because you can't go on the platform unless literally we've seen you. Then when we scaled to self-serve platform, the only barrier to entry was you had a credit card to start spending with us, and you could do online very quickly. Challenge with that then is you get lots of SMEs flooding to you overnight, and your support models, you have to adapt them and amend them very quickly. And then organic, you don't even need a credit card anymore, so literally anyone can sign up. But I think we've seen some really interesting sign-ups. I think one thing which I think gets to your question about how to engage, I think one thing which I've noticed just speaking to a lot of founders and speaking to like smaller companies with a marketing director, they often don't know who to send to these events either, and it's because actually it's been something that I've been looking at and challenging our marketing team to do. Like, I look at these titles of our sessions and I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Like, if I don't get it and I work here, like, how do they know who to send? And so one thing which I've been really pushing us to do is really, again, going back to the basics of marketing, being like, okay, who actually is the audience of this event? And getting away from, I think in the past we got into a bit of like, oh, we just want a good webinar for us is 5,000 people. That's crap. It's not. Like, I'd much rather have 100 people, but they're the right people from a specific vertical, a specific industry, and we do different sessions now for what should be the CMO, the media buyer, and then do roundtables with like the C-suite for their CEOs just to like engage them. And I think it's a hard thing to do, and it's a resource and constraint problem, like we can't do it more, but I think that's probably the biggest learning I've taken in the last year or two, is making it super clear what the session's about, who it's for, and to get away from arbitrary numbers, sort of tracking success of like 10,000 people dialing in or whatever. Like that isn't impressive. Like, I actually said to our marketing team, if I have an event with 1,000 people, you failed, because there's no way in hell what I'm saying is relevant for 1,000 people. And so it's actually getting to go back a little bit smaller. And I think in the industry it's been a hard one, because all of these marketing events now, like there's so many of them. There's bloody if you want to, I think you'll be on stage every day at a conference now. Like, it's so cluttered, it's so noisy. And I think what I've actually realised is going back to basics and really trying to get, ideally one-to-one, but that's not scalable, really try to get a bit more focused with that type of approach.
But is there something you target in particular then? I mean, is there a minimum that you're looking for budget for people to spend on you? Because I find, at least for us, 80% of small businesses we're targeting, again, are not to be spoken of in these tables, because it's traders, legals, etc., whose area is practically 10-mile radius, and that's all their business is right now, at least. So is there something that you target that you have to be a particular persona?
So we used to, back in the day, it used to be a minimum of 50,000 to do stuff with us. It's now, I think it's on ads, it's £1 a day.
Is it?
And then for organic, it's free.
Of course.
So we've gone on that journey of making it, but I think the biggest thing that we've done is, rather than rush to market with an ad platform for everyone, is actually really build something that drives different types of results. So for instance, for the more local business now, we've done this thing, so swipe up to call. So instead of swiping up to a crappy website, which most traders or something will have,
good point,
swipe up to a call function. And I think really trying to understand, again, the consumers' buying flow on their side.
Sure.
And even things like native lead gen and all the products that you build for SMEs have to be different, because if you make the assumption they're going to have a good glossy website to land on, you're wrong. Like some of the websites I get sent, I'm like, live? How big are you? But like that's where I think, yeah, I agree. I think that's it. Well, again, it's on us as a tech platform to play to our strengths and to be like, okay, we know these can drive your results. But yeah, it's easier said than done, and for every success story we've had with an advertiser, we've had many a challenge as well. So I think it's, again, us constantly adapting our models.
So there's been a bit of like crossover in improving your product, whatever that might be, and we're no different. But I was going to sort of pick up on the acquisition piece earlier as well, because I think there's a big question. It will differ in this room as to what proving your product looks like. Well, it's not going to be the same proof, is it? It's going to look very, very different. And for us, I think it's TV, but I think we would approach it different ways, because channels are different and they do different things. But for us, there is a sweet spot for a business. We don't have a revenue target. I'm always keen to put that out there, because the moment you do, you're selling to people, and we've touched on that changes the dynamic of the conversation completely. So we have a success target. So I plan TV for many, many years, and my team plan campaigns that we believe will work. So they don't always work, right? We will mess it up from time to time, but it's the common problem that we have is we want that sweet spot where we're coming into a mix of channels that has Google, it has Microsoft, it has Facebook, etc., etc. And that's great. We don't want to take anything off of that, because TV is going to complement it. So our role is not to try and take it off, it's to actually show what we're going to do. We're going to turn those into acquisition channels. They're going to be scooping up all the acquisitions. But if you judge TV purely by acquisition, yes, you can do it if you structure it the right way. But I guess we call it the apple tree challenge. Everyone wants to pick the apples, you want to eat the apples. Eventually the tree's going to have no apples on it if you don't build the tree, and the tree is the brand. So the value of the brand is something that we're always trying to look at, because obviously with ITV, and I'm not doing any selling today, but to just say, there's shows that seem like a lot of people, right? So is that going to be the most effective way of getting your cost per acquisition low? No, it's definitely not. I would be honest about that as well. But what's the power of being seen there? Is it the right time for you to be working with ITV? Is it the right time to be doing it? Are we being honest about that? And are they valuing that? Because if you're doing a deal with somebody, getting them on, but they're actually only measuring on acquisition, you're going to fail. They're going to get cheesed off, and you're never going to do any business again. So we're always trying to prove the power of brand, and alongside acquisition, don't get me wrong, you do acquire customers on TV and etc. But what is the power of brand? And I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I've got a good hunch about it. I think things like Kazoo have exited pre-IPO, and they were questioning about the valuation that they had, and they just said, look, 3 in 5 people know about us, our awareness is high. They've been on TV everywhere for many, many years. There is a value to it, but I think for us it's a bit different, maybe to some different of you in the room, in that the power of brand that TV does, because we're never going to compete with Google, Microsoft on pure acquisition costs, and if you try to, that's daft. So it's about positioning what proving it looks like.
So how do the SMEs navigate all of these options? Because what we found is there's so much help out there for them, but still they don't know what's available and they don't know what they need.
Yeah, so one of the things that we see a lot, and with that vein, is a lot of it is the education piece. But along with that comes the relationship piece. So it's great that people like you are out there saying, look, it's not going to be as effective for acquisition, but great for branding, and be very honest about that. So for us, it's how do you build that relationship where they feel they can come and talk to you about it and don't feel like they're going to be sold to effectively.
Or feel stupid.
They're
on,
the
what you've said, they're wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
Very few of them have.
Yeah, so that is literally, so when we first started the Panda Network, that is literally one of the lines we used was, you can't be an expert in everything, so let's create a community that is. So it's getting outside of that community with you guys. How do they actually feel confident enough to go to you for a chat, not feeling like they've got to go with a checkbook, not feeling like they should know this already? And I think that's massively the challenge. And I think we see that in rebrands as well. So you were saying that you've recently gone through a rebrand at Google as well. So how are you finding the education piece on that?
Yeah, I've heard very good points, and something that's probably is also applied to my role, going back to basics, simplicity, and something that's Google Workspace. We are struggling to educate small businesses so that they actually not worse than bigger companies, and they actually can also afford good collaboration productivity software, but probably they don't need everything that enterprises are using. And they don't need it at a day stage right now, and that's something that we try to communicate, and that's something what we realized with probably also COVID, that we have to simplify our offering. We have to make it very niche, and also we understand that not everything would suit every type of business, and each country is also different. I'm also I have EMEA in my title. When I joined, EMEA was only one of the regions together with Northam and JPAC. Now I see it's different countries, and we also try to hire more people locally in their markets. And we understand that it's not only about localizing the language, but also localizing the offer and make it simpler and accessible. And that's where also educational piece comes into place. And we try to speak to our customers directly, and directly in different markets from different industries and different sizes. We understand that it's something that cannot be automated, and especially with marketing. Who is doing marketing in this room would look for any scalable automated solutions, but we still have to go to basics and to understand that we cannot automate. We have to talk to our customers directly, and will be manual approach. It will be time consuming, but this will help establish brand, and this will help better understand the audience, and simplifying that offering and to make it actually relevant with all that noise that we have now with all the apps. And we also don't want to sell our products to businesses that don't need it. And that's the thing that's we don't want to be for everyone, but try to be for those who understand the needs, and to again simplifying that offer.
Yeah, it's trying to scale the unscalable in a way, isn't it? Trying to
Counterintuitive, but I think that's the only way right now, especially because if 10, 15 years, Google would have competitive advantage with Google search, Google ads that they could leverage. Now it's affordable for everyone. Now everyone is in the same conditions and has access to almost the same tools. And the only thing that you can compete for would be your brand positioning and your brand perception. And this is something that you have to establish through relationships. And in the beginning, it's necessary would only go through personal connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine, have you found similar with the new role of Sky?
Yeah, so what I was going to say is we do a lot of education. So we are talking a lot to companies. And I think what you said, we found that sort of the entry point was 50 grand. If they don't have 50 grand to spend, so we're quite upfront about that. But it isn't just about getting to a budget level. It's about where are you in that whole journey. But what we have found that works, and because Sky is very resource heavy, we offer a lot of things that are helpful. So insights, viewing behavior, profiling their database to show them where the headroom is in terms of customers on the Sky platforms. But that education piece about exactly that, being quite upfront about, hey, if you're just looking to acquire 1,000 customers every week, you're not going to get that. But it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. But I think it starts out with a conversation, and again, that real partnership-led belief that that there is something that we can do, but being quite honest with what that is.
I also think with partnerships, I think one of the things that we haven't done a great job of, but we're always trying to do more, is actually partner with partners who can actually help them. Yeah. So there's Shopify is a great example where for ages we didn't have a plugin on there, and for loads of them, rather than having to buy media across 10 different platforms by logging into each, just be on the platform where they're running e-com from.
Yeah.
And then you've got companies like Smartly, who can actually take heavy lifting off being across multiple platforms, make it easier for them, blah blah. And I think one of the things which we're always trying to do is actually get partners more excited by the SME ecosystem, because they're often like, oh, these are just too small a client for us, and they're like, well, not really, like, think longer term. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges, is getting agencies, getting partners excited as well, because they could then buy the media across TV, across Google, across Facebook, Snap, and come up with a more holistic strategy and kind of almost outsource certain things for them. And it's one, getting the SME comfortable with it in the first place, but two, getting the partners excited to work with these companies. That's been like a real challenge, and something we want to happen more, but it's one of those things we're trying to make it more appealing. Like, do we cover the cost, for instance, of the agency for them, or smartly? Or something like that.
Well, Callum's analogy to the tree, growing the tree, that's exactly right. Like, we can't do everything. And it actually sparked my memory of a client that I'm working with that I would love to talk to you about what we can do there, because it's not just one stop, shop. It is absolutely a whole network and ecosystem of stuff working in tandem that is actually the secret sauce. So it is about literally building lots of different communities.
I think it's that working in tandem, but the other big thing as well is working at speed. So trying to keep up with the startup. So one thing that always sticks in my mind, and I know it does, of all of our founders, is that idea that big no longer eats small. It's actually fast and slow, right? So how do you get around that? Obviously, just in larger businesses, there just are processes. There are things, hoops that you have to jump through to get things through. So how do you make sure that you're staying on a level playing field with actually the SMEs that you're working with? I realise this isn't an easy
I would say that it just builds on if I'm interpreting it correctly, how we stay on the field with them. Well, the people that we tend to speak to, they don't have to wear many hats again. They tend to not come from a TV background, right? So Catherine probably has exactly the same challenge, where it doesn't matter what you talk about when you are winning their trust, right, through integrity, etc. When they're on air and they're watching their brand go out, and I always think they must look awesome. Like, thought of something in the shower and then use it on national TV as an improvement. But they always want to press that red button, which is not look at anything apart from the same analytics that you were looking at when you were on Google, when you were, and go back to that comparison again. So trying to get on a level with that, we do work with different partners to try to bring brand to life, so that we're not just saying it to them, and they want metrics, they want it to be measurable. So to try and make our offering in line with what they're after, we are developing so many different tools to do that, platforms they can log into in the same way that they log into all of their other things, to bring it all together in one place. I hope I've interpreted that correctly. That's kind of what we're doing, to try and level up and not go talk our language, but we're going to try to talk your language.
I think it also comes to having the entrepreneurial mindset built into the big business. As you're saying, when you're hiring locally, it's about having those people who act like a small business themselves. So each sort of localized area will have that entrepreneurial mindset that will then ingratiate themselves with the SME community that they're dealing with. For Clearco, for example, working predominantly with those sort of, I guess, earlier stage, sort of looking to grow, looking to scale. It's about being able to interpret their needs, because it's something that we are instilling in each member of our employee, or every employee that comes to Clearco. It's about being able to enable them to understand what entrepreneurship is and the sort of trials and tribulations that come with it, so that when they're hearing these issues or problems, they can empathize with it and then identify something in our portfolio of products or offering that can plug that gap. And I think that mindset is super important to being able to to be able to respond and react to the SME needs and desires. Because without that understanding, essentially what you are is you're just a big business.
I think that understanding piece is massive on the ground level. But I think what else is really impactful is actually having, whether the founder is still involved in your businesses or is known, so known in a Google's case, for instance, being able to talk about their journeys and where you can, and I know we've done this with a number of companies, actually getting their founders to come and talk to the founders on a real level playing field. I think that makes a big difference.
Being able to draw comparisons and parallels and emulate a particular...
I feel like a lot of big businesses miss the trick on that. Even if the founders are no longer around, if it's a really old business and they're not with the business anymore, but at least talk about them and talk about the origin story. And I think there's that relatability piece there. as well. So actually, how about you? How are you finding connecting with these SMEs and educating them and so on? I know we've got big things to come next year.
Yes,
How's it been so far?
Well, I agree about the educational piece, and I agree with Henry about internal education as well with the team, like whether this is like a marketing team or sales team or SDR team, to make them understand how small businesses and startups do their business and how much they are like agile, they wear many different hats, and like an internal education as well as external education as well. So this is one of the challenge, because we are also like a US based company, and myself again have EMEA title, and my focus is DACH, France and UKI. So it's and also another challenge I have is that our neighbor colleagues, they are very much focused on mid-market and enterprise, whereas in EMEA we are like very much focused on growth, small businesses and startups. So whatever is produced in Neymar doesn't really resonate with our targets and objectives, and also like with the small business that we want to speak to. So that's one challenge, and I'm quite happy like hearing about localization and being like local, speaking to their language, because I feel like I'm not alone. Like, you know, we all have these same challenges, and like thinking about this. For example, now we are focusing on how we can tailor our messaging, how we can tailor our content to make sure that we speak their language, and also like with yourselves and with other partners, making sure that we are in the right platforms. Like we will work with you guys for UKI, for example, and we are in France. We have like a really cool project with Station F. They're a big startup campus, so we will be there. You guys also have office as well, so it's quite exciting, but at the same time, yeah, it comes with challenges as well, just to be able to make sure that we speak their language, we understand their challenge as well. I mean, we have a really good sales team, account executives. They are always in touch with our clients, and they track their progress as well. And the final point on that, like being super targeted with the events as well, because we also do like lots of in-person, wasn't able to do last year. What the plan is to do in-person events, but we do lots of virtual events as well. So we want to balance it, having existing customers and making sure that we keep the conversation going with them and educating with them, at the same time reaching out the greenfield and get our name out there, and yeah.
Having the right team internally massively depends on how bought in the wider company is, I guess, as well. So one of our latest partners, Reddit, they literally took all their SMB team out to Lisbon and had a full week, 2 weeks, like quite a while, where they went over everything from how they deal with SMBs, what's worked in the States, what they're hoping will work in the UK, but also breaking down stages and different positions and whatever else. So I think if the wider company really bought into the SMB space, it becomes a lot easier. Has anyone had that friction where it almost just doesn't seem that much of a priority? Has anyone come against that?
We've definitely moved that way over the last year and a half.
Away from SMBs?
No, just before that, that shift to local businesses during the COVID period was just phenomenal. People moving away from those international, nationwide companies to really supporting those local businesses, and also the way that the local businesses were able to evolve and adapt and innovate against what they were able to sell and deliver or whatever it was, whereas so many other people struggled with supply chains or their business. And I just think it's just been a total flip in terms of the industry as a whole, but also we are absolutely focusing on it now, and it's interesting, that's the big opportunity for us, and the rest of the business, our big clients obviously will keep turning over, but this is where we're putting some investment, which is
The money, I think the big bet there is where the money is as well. Like if you look at Facebook, Google's revenue, 60% of it is now SME revenue. So it's actually bigger than traditional enterprise.
exactly.
It's only going to get bigger as these brands grow. And so I think that's ultimately what gets us excited as companies to support them. I think the one thing which I think that is so true is getting the message across the entire organisation. So I think one thing which I really like that we've started doing at Snap is literally our Chief Business Officer before would come over to Europe and would meet with Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Unilever, all the ones you think that they would need to. But now we actually make sure, actually half our trip is dedicated on meeting multitude of small businesses in client councils and things like that. And you also notice the impact a CBO can have meeting a small business is huge. Like they take so much more away from it. They're also more grateful for it, to be honest.
I think it rewards long term, isn't it? Because if you can show that support at that stage where maybe you don't have that opportunity to help right there and then, but you will always then be remembered as that brand that lent that hand in the time of need and will probably benefit from that. I mean, obviously there's competition out there, but you're probably more likely to benefit from that that sort of memory of you being there at a time which was pivotal in their business trajectory. So I think with the stats coming out of Companies House of like the amount of businesses that are being created over the pandemic, etc., record-breaking year last year, for example, like I think it does present like around this table the opportunity to essentially get in there at that sort of elevator, like that ground floor level, and it may be a slightly longer lead time. It's not those quick financial wins that some businesses are sort of looking for, but longer term it has that ability to impact not only their business but your business as well.
One thing I always say is, well, small business is such a broad term.
Yeah.
And so to get the buy-in from a company like us is actually okay. We're not talking about, like we said, like local plumbers and stuff like that. One day we hope we can support them and be better, but like, in the moment when we talk about what we're doing with small businesses, it's all e-com and really helping, kids that are setting up brands literally in their room on Shopify. And I think that's the way that you can easily navigate the conversation in a bigger company, is getting specific within what you mean small business is. It's like, what is a small business to Snap? I think that's one thing where at the beginning we went wrong, because I was like, we want to support everyone, and it's like, stand us the stair lifts. We've got a young audience, like they're not going to do this well. And I was like, let's just take a step back. And so I think that's one of the things, is like defining what small businesses you can actually help and support, and then getting that message across the bigger companies is the key.
Yeah, I think that's massively important. I think when we talk about SMEs, that's everyone under 250 employees. So a solo one-man band is very different to a team of 5, is very different to a team of 50, 100, 250. So it's it's really defining that, but also not getting too caught up in one metric. So as I say, if you're just caught up in revenue, you're going to miss a ton of businesses. And the other thing is, I think it's just being very aware, and you sort of mentioned it there, is just the domino effect of what actually affects these brands and what causes change. So I guess just a quick example would be in the early days of the lockdowns, we were talking to a lot of FMCG brands that were in supermarkets. They had their panic that actually footfall in supermarkets were lower. People don't make impulse purchases online because they type in Coke, crisp, whatever else. So all of a sudden it all came direct to consumer, which in a way worked great for them. They got more data, they could recur it once they'd got them. They're all online. It meant they could then expand internationally fairly seamlessly. So we've got to keep an eye on that. And then of course at the time Brexit was going on, so that could have been taken away at any minute. Cybercrime went up X 100%. So it's just trying to stay on top of actually what each of those dominoes means to these SMEs. So
I think 87% of our brands join us to trade direct to consumer. Tesco and Sainsbury's have been knocked off our top 10 reason to join by Instagram and Facebook for the first time since we've been going on for 40 years. So social selling, and we were having this conversation before, we've gone from a conversation with brands which is, how do I export? It's part of my 4, 5, 6 year strategy to, I've got customers overseas, how the bloody hell do I get product to them? So the conversation's gone from marketing and comms, which we can all have an opinion on, to hardcore logistics, and this is where we're now saying, okay, well, it's great that you've got that audience, we need to help you grow, and it is part of year 1 strategy, month 6 strategy, and we've got brands that are now in Dubai before they're in Derby. And I think that dynamic is something that we need to keep as a consequence of COVID, because spreading their bets from a market perspective and from a channel perspective is the only way they're going to be sustained. And we have a real concern about, and Henry's right, biggest growth area ever last year. However, we're seeing massive return to normal where the side hustles are being exchanged for what they're perceiving as proper jobs, because it's just too difficult. And I think as a community we've got a role to play to help that passion project become a reality by giving them the infrastructure to not make them feel like they've failed and they've got to go back and do a proper job. And we're seeing that's the bit that's really keeping me awake at night right now, and the fact that we've done a lot to get them going, but it's almost going on the too difficult path.
Well, we are just about out of time. This morning has flown by. This was a bit of a trial for us to see what do you like bringing big brands together to share ideas. So I'm hoping everyone found it useful, and if so, it's something we'll happily continue to do next year as well. But we've certainly found it useful, so hopefully everyone will take it. I guess just one bit for me with our community is just make sure you build those relationships, be the person they can come to for advice and be a champion for that area, whether you get business out of it or not. And I'm a big believer that will show return. But thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
I need to say, but I hope you all have a good Christmas. Saying that again. And I hope we all catch up soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.